Hey, my name is Joel Johnson with Hatton Landscape, and I am a hardscaper.
What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 188 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, we have an I Am a Hardscaper interview with a business owner doing a deep dive into their business. And this is with Joel of Hatton Landscape. You can find him on Instagram, Hatton_landscape. That's HATTON_landscape there. And before we get into today's episode, this episode is brought to you by Cycle CPA. You can find them also on Instagram, Cycle_CPA. And if this is the year that you're going to need a little bit of help understanding your numbers a little bit further, they offer bookkeeping, accounting, and CFO services. And if you mention the How to Hardscape podcast, you get $200 off their services there. So reach out to them, Cycle_CPA on Instagram or CycleCPA.com. We'll be talking more about them later in today's episode. Not to mention more about understanding your numbers. The How to Hardscape headquarters will help you budget, estimate, and so much more. Reach out to me if you're interested in that at the How to Hardscape members only platform. That's members.howtohardscape.com, or just reach out to me at How to Hardscape on Instagram. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode with Joel. All right, Joel, let's get started to get to know a little bit more about you, yourself, how you got started in the industry. Give our audience a little bit of background about your beginnings.
Yeah, so about 10 years ago, I actually used to work for Mike Arnold with Creekside Landscape. So that was really where I got my introduction to the landscape industry. I worked on his mow crew for a year. And then, yeah, I kind of jumped into things really, really pretty green after that. I grew up doing a lot of landscaping with my dad around the house and stuff like that, more general maintenance, stuff like that, hedge trimming. So yeah, I kind of had an opportunity that came up through a family friend to buy like a small mow route from him. So I went ahead and kind of did that and started doing it on the weekends, and then just worked my way into it. Uh, but yeah, so coming into the industry as far as like owning a business, I really had basically a general understanding of lawn care and the maintenance side of stuff, but kind of learned the hardscaping, along the way through. Resources and stuff.
Nice.
Uh, so yeah, I again started working with Creekside, then began mowing for myself, and then kind of had some small opportunities for some little flat work for customers and stuff like that. That kind of pulled me into the hardscape industry. Once I got more familiar with it, and even seeing, again, a lot of the work on Instagram and stuff like that, it was like kind of felt like my way out of cutting grass every day. Not that that was a great business. I'm grateful for it. But it just be able to use more of that creativity and stuff like that was good. So we went off. I think it was about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and did our ICPI and NCMA training. Kind of get those certifications and that deep understanding of how to do things right. Um, and then yeah, just kind of been going from there slowly but surely.
I want to get into your story here. Maintenance. Do you still do maintenance in the business this day? Do you still have that division going?
Yeah, so we do still do like the HOA property. So we're not doing any residential anymore. Just dealing with the HOA groups. But those have been good for us. It's helps build out the snow route as well because we do snow plowing in the winter. So yeah, we are still involved in the maintenance, but thankfully have kind of shifted it from, you know, 500, not 500, but a bunch of individual customers to just a kind of a cluster of those homeowner association. Uh, so we have one crew that does that, and then kind of a crew that is our hardscape crew for what we did this year. Kind of two separate crews.
And was that like from the time you purchased those routes to do those maintenance routes, those lawn care routes? Did you have it in the back of your mind that you wanted to get more and more into hardscaping, or was it, what, this opportunity came up, like guns blazing, let's do this? Where does hardscape, that seed start to get planted where you want to, transition more and more to that?
Think really a lot through again the Instagram and stuff, kind of seeing the projects that were being put out. I know Mike does some really beautiful work over at Creekside and a lot of other companies. So seeing that as well as got connected with Jack over at Imagine through the Masterminds group. And just, again, we had been doing some hardscape before that, but again, just kind of seeing those projects online was really what drew me into it. And I love the creativity of the design and laying out patios and just the opportunity that's there, mixing pavers and all the different materials and stuff. It just felt a lot more creative to me than versus we have these houses that have mowed the same yard for 5 years or something like that. Kind of breaks you out of the box a little bit. So that was just again kind of that inspiration from the gram and different sources like that.
Yeah.
Just was like, man, I would love to build stuff like that. Uh, that's really what pulled us in. We do a lot of artificial turf now and the putting green stuff like that. So that's what kind of pulled us, forward, kind of into a lot of different new fields. Just as a result of that exposure.
That so you invest into the ICPI and CMA. How do you land those first initial jobs to kind of get that ball rolling? Did you already have some leads in terms of you're doing lawn care for this certain clients? You start to offer that services. Like, where do you get that ball rolling to get those first initial jobs?
Yeah. So it was probably around. So it'll be 10 years in February. We've been in business. It was probably around like year 3 or 4. I had a customer uh, that asked us to build some pillars for him. So again, I was kind of like, yeah, I could do that. And long story short, the pillars we ended up having to rebuild a few years later. But it was like that kind of sparked that in me of like just kind of wanting to do more of the build side of things. So after that fiasco, we went back and took them down, rebuilt them properly. But that was really when I kind of had that epiphany, like, man, I need to get some training. So that's where, again, I started really diving into the resources. And for me, that would be one of my biggest things to push on people is, there's a lot of available material out here, whether it's Alman with his, training videos or, going to those technical certifications. But dive into those things, because once you get that baseline, you're really able to go from there on a good foundation.
What one was it that you started to feel like more and more confident where you can like really push this service to existing clients to try to get new leads? Like where does that kind of fit in the timeline after those pillars when you go back, you do what needed to be done there?
Yeah. So really, for me, once I got that certification, I felt pretty confident. We began doing a bit more of just the kind of flat work stuff. But for me, to start landing the bigger projects like some of the stuff we're doing, today, that really came as a result of giving. I wouldn't say giving away work, but doing work for a good price. I remember hearing one time Sean on your podcast from Premiere talking about when you're starting out that there's some value in considering that it was an advertising cost where you get some projects in the ground and you're able to kind of show people that you're qualified and that you know what you're doing. And so I would say that was kind of a big help for us is we had a builder friend that was doing a full build on a house that had some retaining walls, and we actually did a paver driveway there. So that was kind of our that big gulp, you know what I mean, where it was a big project for us, but we did great at it. That was 5 years ago today.
Nice.
Everything's great there, but once you get that first project that really is somewhat to scale, then you're able to kind of start landing more of the projects. So we didn't really have a lot of customers per se asking this of us before we had a portfolio. I think it really came as a result of getting that first customer to trust you to do the big project. Make sure you do your due diligence before you get on site, obviously. But once you get the first one in the ground and get some pictures that you can show people, I know once I had those pictures of a driveway and some 8-foot walls, people were just assume you know what you're doing, kind of.
Yeah. Absolutely. I've got a couple of questions dating back to what you said at the beginning, starting with Mike Arnold there. What experience were you able to take away from that position when you get this opportunity to purchase this lawn route? What were you able to transfer from your experience with Mike Arnold and Creekside there over to then starting your own business and taking on this opportunity?
So he really, again, working for him, I was on his mow crew. I was running a maintenance crew for him. So I was involved in that side of the business. They were still doing the hardscape, but I guess honestly, just kind of seeing Mike in that position, it was like it just seemed like a really cool environment to be able to be a part of, just as far as the landscape industry as a whole. So yeah, again, I kind of seeing the work they did, I think was the biggest thing that drove me. But yeah, as far as the actual technical skills and knowledge, unfortunately, that opportunity came a little early, so I didn't get to again develop my skills under someone else, which I think is looking back again, that's kind of one of those things. Hindsight's 2020, but I really started green. I really did,
Yeah.
and did a lot of learning in the field, which was hard. But yeah, again, the work Creekside does and all of that was a big inspiration as far as their standards of quality and the work they're putting out and stuff. They do some really great work.
Yeah. What about in just terms of owning and operating a business? Like, were there any specific things just being on that mow crew that you're able to apply to now your mowing route, and anything in terms of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I know you see a lot of times where people guys will be mentioning how big it is to have the fuel on site at your shop. I know Mike had that 10, 12 years ago. That was something that was just part of their route. So, he really did a great job of just, making sure that crews are, had what they need, and that things ran smoothly there. Obviously, every business has their hiccups and things that break and the chaos that's a part of it. But yeah, I think one big takeaway that it took me a while to implement in my own business is Mike does such a great job of getting his people in place and then really letting them do their thing. Whereas sometimes as an owner operator, it's really hard to get your hand out of the mix. I know that's something that till really as of 2 years ago, I was in the field every single day. 70, 80 hour weeks, just hustling, but he really does a great job of again building that team around himself, whether it's designers or people that can do good work. But yeah, building that team is really a skill set. I think that as an owner, that everyone has to kind of fight to develop within themselves.
Definitely. Did working there, did having that position give you the confidence that when this opportunity comes up to purchase this lawn route, did that give you the confidence to like dive right into that and like, yes, this is the opportunity that I want to take? Or if you didn't work there, would you still have purchased that lawn route to get you started in your business? Like,
Yeah, if I didn't work, I really don't think that opportunity would have even come around. It was kind of the fact that somebody knew I worked for a lawn care that I was reached out to. It was someone from our church community. So I knew the guy, but again, he kind of had reached out to me as a result of knowing I was in the industry. And again, I really enjoyed the drive, the equipment, the operating. I had gone off to a year of college, and I think I kind of had this realization that was not the route I wanted to take. I didn't want to sit behind the desk for
right.
the rest of my life. So I really, again, I think that's where I admired that position of being able to own and operate, work in the business. Uh, it felt like my door in, if you will. Which again, looking back, it probably should have stayed a few more years to glean some more skills. I think I could have eliminated a lot of headaches along the way for sure.
Definitely, definitely. So, continuing on with your story here, we talked about like getting that ball rolling with your first initial project, and then continuing to build up your portfolio there. Today in your business, where do you find the majority of your leads are coming through currently?
Yeah, I would say the majority of it is through word of mouth. When we ask a lot of our customers, it's we're over at certain customer's house and saw their patio out back or talked to their friend. But that to us is the number one source of lead. We will run some Facebook ads and do some things like that, kind of along the way. But I would say by far that's our biggest source of leads that are coming through the door. So we, try and make that a habit around here to, send things out to previous customers, really thank them for the work that we've done. But yeah, I think that's the number one thing is leaving your job site with your customers that they're not like happy you're gone when you leave, that they really enjoyed the experience along the way. So that's been our biggest source of leads. But I mean, also, I think when you're getting started out, again, once you get a few pictures, those Facebook ads can be really helpful as well. We've had a lot of good results, uh, doing different Facebook ads and stuff like that. But those have really been the two sources over the years. We're looking this year to kind of expand a little bit, so we're going to be trying some new avenues as far as sending mailers and things. But really, up to date, we have not done any marketing other than like our Facebook ads or some things like that. But uh, yeah, most of it's really just coming through, referrals from other customers and that word of mouth. So that would be a big push is, make sure you're treating your existing customers really well and that when you leave that they're happy.
And then
So
just kind of picking that apart a little bit, what do you do specifically to ensure that your clients that you are currently servicing are happy throughout the process, at the end of the process? Like any things in particular there that you like ensure that along the way they're happy and at the end of the project they're happy and everything like that?
yeah, so again, that in and of itself has been a huge journey. Sometimes you get on these projects that are 20 pallets or more, and you just leave a mess everywhere. There's half pallets stacked on top of each other with the papers wedged between it, and it's so easy for those sites to become chaos. But that's been something that specifically this past season that we really tried to focus, whether it was sweeping the street at the end of every day, but I think keeping a clean site, not only does your homeowner appreciate that, but I think the customers that are around there that also have money are noticing that as well. As a result, this year, early April, we did a project where, it was kind of that exact situation. We did a great job cleaning up the site, and the customer had actually come over and mentioned it to us, then ended up resulting in more work for us. So I think that's a huge one is how you leave your site at the end of the day, as well as communicating with customers. I know that's the one thing with contractors, right? Is it's like if you can get back to someone and in like a day or two from an email or something, it's like that's way higher than the average in most areas. So I think having that good communication with especially the people you're working for, is huge. And then hitting your deadlines as much as you can. Really trying to make that a priority. I know sometimes you get into again those bigger projects and they end up expanding a week or 2 weeks or whatever it might be. But yeah, I think that's super important to give someone a realistic deadline and then follow through on that.
Yeah. That one hits home for me with my last project of the season. Yeah, better to what is it, under promise and over deliver than to over promise and under deliver. So that's definitely a good one for sure, right?
Yeah, and we all know that there's absolutely things that happen. But I think just having that, whether it's when you show up on site that morning, like letting the homeowner know, like, hey, it's too wet, so this is going to bump everything. But just keeping that clear communication along the process, or if you're waiting on materials, we deal with that sometimes as well. If there's holdups, you can't stop those. But I think again, just making sure that there's that clear line of communication to kind of keep everyone's expectations in check.
I just want to take a break from today's episode to talk about our sponsor, Cycle CPA. You may have a CRM or project management software in place, but what data are you using to ensure your estimating is accurate? Having a proper accounting setup and accurate bookkeeping done is key to understanding overhead expenses and other costs that must be recouped in your estimates. Cycle CPA is a remote bookkeeping and CFO firm that helps to connect the dots from the financial reports to the hardscape and landscape data needed in order to reach high profits. They provide landscape and hardscape industry benchmarking, job costing, financials by service line, advisory meetings, and much more.
Cycle CPA's team of accountants are specialized within the hardscape and landscape industry, and you can visit them at cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode.
So going on to leads, to transferring to your sales process, somebody has contacted you, whether that's through email, phone call, text, whatever that might be. Where do you take that from there? How do you continue on towards scheduling a consultation with them?
Yeah, so really, the process is, when someone will call in, I'll, get back to them. We'll set up a time to come meet on site. Uh, Really, for everything we're doing, we'll have customers every now and then that will be like, I'll just, send you pictures, or it's a 10 by 10 patio. What is it going to cost? We don't mess with that. We always, do a site visit with the customers. So that's kind of step one, set that site visit. Then from there, depending on where we're in the season, if we need a design, kind of talk through that with them. But really, for us, we show up on site, and for our hardscape or outdoor living spaces, just kind of get the wish list from the customer as far as what all they want, and then give them kind of a time frame as far as our design. And then from there, once we get the design, we're really kind of going to rework this process a bit, because I can just share from some failures. There's a lot of times where number one, not charging for designs, and number two, just emailing those to customers with the proposal. There's a lot of times where people don't respond, or you have some of those headaches where people just don't really value that as much. So that's going to be something that this year we're going to kind of push to implement this year, is actually charging for those designs, and tweaking that process a little bit, because that's when kind of a hiccup in our growth is, we might send out 10 designs to people, or 10 designs to 10 customers, and maybe 7 out of 10 will even talk to us after that point. So trying to find a way to vet that, I think, is going to be super super crucial.
You mentioned in there that you might like email a design and a proposal and not hear back from them. Are you thinking of actually being able to meet in person and show them the design and proposal and talk them through that, or like a Zoom call? Like, what's your thoughts around doing that, or like in the future, what are you thinking about doing?
Yeah, so we have a office space like in town near our shop. So that's been something where I really would like to turn that into kind of the where we present our designs, either there or obviously being willing to meet a customer at the house. But I think handing that design over in person, because some of these hardscape projects, when a customer sees the price for some of these things, it's not cheap work. So I think sometimes you deal with some of that sticker shock,
Yeah.
um, that where people just don't respond, or then just go to start getting other opinions. So that's where, yeah, I think that in-person meeting of going over the design and sort of that presentation is going to be crucial, to kind of require that, if you will, just to, again, be able to talk through it with the customer, allow them to understand, why does this outdoor kitchen setup cost 20 grand? It's like, well, you're able to kind of go through that with them. And not that you have to explain yourself away to a customer. I know sometimes that's a pit to get stuck in. But I think being able to be there with them to, then talk through adjustments to get within budget. Because I'm not sure what your experience is, but I know most customers are fairly reluctant to give you a hard number as far as a budget or what they had in mind for their backyard. We'll ask, but a lot of times they're like, well, we're just kind of, very skittish about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's normal or not, but that's what we experience. So I think sometimes I'll give a customer a kind of a ballpark of where we're at on site, but normally I just get their wish list and then kind of show them what it'll cost, and then we can always pair back from there. Sort of thing is how I've approached that in the past.
Definitely. Yeah, getting that budget's difficult, and it could be them being reluctant, right? Or it could also be them. I think the majority of people just don't understand what goes into these spaces and how much it costs. So I think I try to lean more towards their ignorance of not knowing what it costs, as opposed to like them trying to hold that back for you for some reason, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of it is, again, they're just unsure. They have nothing to even frame of around what this outdoor space is going to cost, so they don't want to, yeah, sound foolish, I guess. Anyway, so it's
Yeah.
understandable. I think that's where for us, it's important to tell them like, hey, normally if you're going to do a space with a fire feature and or a outdoor kitchen, it's going to be 50 grand or more.
Right.
So to kind of give them some ballpark numbers just to help educate them on site. I
Yeah.
think it can save both parties some time. So that's definitely something that we try to do. But yeah, going back to just the design charging and stuff, like we at the start of the spring, a few times I had mentioned that to customers that a design was this much, and yeah, we kind of experienced a decent amount of resistance. So not that that is how you need to gauge what you do in your business, but I think for us, you can kind of incorporate the design cost into the project. It's just important to make sure you're converting enough of those leads.
Yeah, I like that idea. And going back to what you said from the beginning when you were first starting out, pricing those projects to build up your portfolio was an important thing in your growth, right? And Still Designs is like a value add, so to speak. So like you can still price that into your project and find a way to be able to not necessarily give them away for free, but maybe you can charge for them and reimburse them in the actual project when they go ahead with it or something like that, right? There's so many different ways in which you can incorporate that design cost into the final project.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really, I think, what we're looking to do going forward. And then I know we had talked about, again, going back to how we get leads, we were looking into some mailers and even sending out like we offering free designs till April 1, and then kind of being able to draw that line in the sand where that's kind of our transition period to charging for that. But again, just in full transparency, that has been kind of something along the journey I put my foot into and taking it out, and yeah, been a little bit back and forth on. So yeah, it's been a process. I think that's the fun part about owning your own business, being able to do this is that you really get to set the culture of how you run and how you operate. Again, for us, just going back to once we got those pictures of that driveway that we had done specifically, it was like once you showed a customer that on site, they just assume that you know what you're doing. And even it was great for really generating those leads on Facebook, having those pictures that we could run ads with. So that to me is like, if you're serious about this, again, you want to make sure you're recouping your costs and that you're not like giving your work away. But yeah, the quicker you can build a portfolio, I know that for us has really accelerated the amount of calls we get. Just whether it's on Instagram or whatever it is, but just having those pictures of the projects that you're doing just really shows people that again you're a part of the industry, if you will, kind of gives you that validation.
Definitely. What about your qualification process before you actually go ahead and schedule a consultation? Like, what kind of questions are you trying to ask them, or even are you trying to get that budgeted in that initial conversation before you schedule the consultation, or trying to give them like an idea of, hey, typically like our projects are going to cost like this? Like, what kind of questions are you asking in that qualification phase before you schedule a consultation with them?
Yeah, so I mean, again, looking at kind of our process, I have not had a very in depth as far as a qualifying process, but I think the biggest thing will be kind of getting what they're looking for over the phone, as far as what type of project are they looking to have done, and then being able to kind of give them some sort of frame of reference, whether it's we generally charge this much per day plus material, or just kind of getting them involved. Like you said, for the hardscape stuff, there's kind of some benchmarks of if you've got a gas fire pit, it's going to add this much, or sort of those things that we've developed along the way, where you can kind of help set that expectation. But yeah, I mean that's really the biggest thing is just seeing what they're looking to have done, and then kind of a rough estimate as far as, hey, generally our patios are going to start around like 10,000 bucks. It's going to be kind of that baseline. We can do something real small for less than that, but it's like generally that's going to be kind of your baseline spend there. So yeah, I think just having those uh, a few numbers in your pocket to where this is kind of roughly what these will start at, is a great way to at least get your foot in the door and make sure you're not wasting your time in the process. Because again, there's been many years where we had zero qualification. We were just sending the designs to anybody who asked. And yeah, you can. I'm the candidate of wasting a lot of time doing that. So yeah, I think the more you can qualify with making your customer still feel comfortable, it's worth it. Save you a lot of time.
Yeah. I've wasted a lot of my time with the not having a qualification process. So you're in I'm sure there's many people just starting out that have done the exact same. And with that being said, a consultation, do you charge? Do you not charge? Why or why not?
So I don't charge. Again, this is something we've been kind of kicking around for this year. I brought in someone. We're getting involved with Synced Up, kind of doing a lot of business change, trying to build out our infrastructure a lot more. So we've talked and been really back and forth on that. But currently we don't, and we have it. And the justification or reason behind it. I mean, I know there are quite a few companies in the area that do charge. So yeah, I think I don't have a lot of justification for why we don't. I just, for me, as a kind of a company, that's has been working for years to really get our name into the local market, and become a good option. I wanted to go to every lead, shake every hand, and even if we're the guy where like, we got a quote for Hatton and it was expensive, hey, they're talking about it. So it's just like I kind of wanted to just chase every squirrel, if you will. But I think as we develop, and kind of hone our process and are getting better leads, I think it's important that we do, even if it's just a basic cost of like $50. I don't think that we'll ever be charging several $100s to go look at someone's house. But I think just that initial investment, I think, is helps your customer open their email when things come through, or gives them kind of that buy-in or that investment into the project as well. I see the value in why to charge, but again, we aren't currently doing that.
And so then you schedule that consultation, you go to the consultation, and you mentioned getting a checklist of things that they are looking for in that project. What questions are you asking them, or things are that you are looking for to be able to get that checklist, or to be able to understand further what they're exactly looking for their outdoor space?
Yeah. So one thing, again, this kind of I had heard from Jack Kelly over at Imagine that he had shared that really stuck with me is it's like uh, our job as designers is to really kind of show people what their space could be. So it's like I think a lot of people when they think they might know they want a patio and like a fire table or something, but really to push those features, like I put putting greens in almost every design I do, or these different features. I think it's just fun to kind of show people what their yard could be. So we do get a general feel of the customer. We'll always kind of go through whether they want a bar top or a pergola or a fire area. But even there, a lot of times when someone just wants a fire pit, we'll design a bench in, or some of these features, just to kind of push. Most people don't realize that you can build a full couch out of pavers. They haven't seen that before. So I think that's where there's a lot of fun and creativity in this space to be able to use that as like an opportunity to show your customer what their yard could be in a way. But yeah, in that process, it is important. You don't want to design a $200,000 backyard for someone who just wants a fire pit. So there is some gauging between there. But for those customers that you can tell are looking for a big, beautiful space, kind of get that checklist. So really, for us, it's do you want a fire feature, outdoor kitchen area, any overhead features, and then do you golf?
Yeah.
Or So those sort of things. So yeah, that's kind of our process. Just get their wish list, if you will, of some things they're looking to see, um, and then yeah, kind of go from there.
So if you ask them like about a specific feature, say something like a seat wall, or you ask them if they golf and they're kind of like, yeah, a little bit, but they're not like too interested. Will you still like include something like that in the design just to show them like the potential to see if they'll go ahead? And if you do, like, what are your results with doing something like that?
Yeah, so we actually had a project. We did someone's whole front yard with artificial turf. It was a paver driveway, but that was for me. It was like such an uplifting experience. I essentially showed up at this guy's house. Was just talking about because we were landscapers to him, so he just was kind of talking about like we would maybe do some new plants or I don't like this rock, real basic stuff. And in the process of talking with him, I kind of shared with him that his, walkway was bad. So then we talked about doing pavers, and he's like, "Well, the whole driveway's bad." So I was like, "Well, we could do, you know." So it's just kind of like one thing after the next, and he was telling me how terrible their front yard was. So I kind of mentioned that artificial turf, but kind of just led his hand through this. And before we knew it, I went to this consult thinking it was going to be for maybe a $5,000 landscape job, and ended up leaving with one of the biggest projects we've ever done. So again,
Nice.
I think that might be a little ode to like there's value in just going to every project, because sometimes the customers have no idea what you're capable of. And once you get on site, I think you can kind of cast some dreams for the people and some vision. Um, but yeah, I mean, if a customer's like, no, I'm not really into golf, not that I'm going to like absolutely push that. But we'll, if we build a bench, we might put some two water features on either end, like some, stone, but like pondless water features. So just kind of looking to add those little extra things that they may not have thought of. Um, you know, yeah, just try and get creative. I think that's where, again, I really have loved in this hardscape industry is with the level of creativity that you can do in someone's backyard, whether it's sunken features or all these sort of different elements that you can incorporate. Uh, yeah, so it's kind of a mix. You want to take what the customer's giving you and not just go the opposite direction with it. But I think it's important that as a designer, you're always inspired and really looking for those creative features that you can add in because I don't know about your area, but most patios are a big rectangle with a little circle outlet off where you put your fire pit. So it's like really trying to find ways where we can make more unique spaces.
Yeah.
It's been fun for us. Like we last year got to do a big like golf course in the customer's backyard. It's like a 3,000 square foot turf job with multiple layers. So it's like that's really my passion and what gets me excited is those interactive spaces where it's not just flat work, but really somewhere you can go and like make some memories and stay out there till 2 in the morning, chipping golf balls, playing, and you're creating those spaces people don't want to leave beyond just the simple flat work.
Definitely, definitely. And then when it comes to the proposal, this is something that I want to ask more and more people as they come on the show. Actually, is what's your style with sending a proposal to somebody in terms of what that proposal actually looks like? Do you do very specific line item pricing for everything and go all out on it? Do you do pricing by work areas so that they can kind of pick and choose and see where they're going with it with that? Or do you just do like say an explanation and have the different work areas, but have a single price for everything included? What's your style like for sending a proposal and what it looks like?
So we don't get super in depth as far as the breakdown, but for a proposal, like if you've got a patio with outdoor feature and a fire pit and the bench, each one of those will be kind of line item just so the customer can kind of gauge like I I don't quite want to spend that much money. So it gives them, I feel like for me, it gives them a bit of control or understanding
Yeah.
in the cost per feature. So I don't like break it down like to like excavation cost or this, like real detailed, but I will give them, sort of a somewhat broken down project because again, we want to be flexible with customers. I realize there's a lot of people that don't have $50,000 to spend in their backyard, but I'd still love to work for them. So that's where I think to you do want to be careful because we've had a lot of customers that will like dig and prod. Like I won't give them material costs or things that specific, but I will give them like, hey, if you want a 10-foot bar and a built-in grill, it's going to be this much.
Right.
So that they kind of give them some education on what each one of these features costs to get you to this $100,000 backyard,
Definitely.
or whatever that is. So yeah, I think it's again, I know some people just give it all. It's like this is what it costs to do it, or we don't do it. That's not really my approach. I try to best we can work with people, especially when you know they're serious.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that's the kind of our approach to that.
And then when a client goes ahead with you, do you have a specific pricing structure in terms of this percent down, this percent midway, this percent at the end? Or is it flexible in terms of the project? Just what's your thoughts on that pricing structure once you've signed up a client?
Yeah, so we'll do just like a 10% deposit to get on our schedule. So not a huge deposit, but that's like a non-refundable deposit to confirm the work. So I don't get a huge amount upfront. And then once we get into the project, normally for anything over I'd say like 50,000, we're doing 4 draws throughout the project. So that's been good for us. So we'll get that uh, so take 10% out, but then we'll do like 4 draws throughout the project. So the first day we're there, 25%, then, as materials arrive on site, 25%, and then kind of a benchmark throughout the project. So that's kind of how we've done it. It's worked well for us. Again, I kind of learned that from Caleb over at Almond. He had mentioned just the importance of that draw method. We used to do stuff just like 50% down and 50% at the end. But that just does not seem wise. It's just not a wise move. So I kind of like the idea of getting that money in draws throughout. Again, for a smaller, maybe $10,000 project, we'll maybe do a 50 and then 50 because we'll be in and out in a few days. But normally for those larger projects that are a few weeks or more, doing those draws, I think works best for everyone. Customer gets to see some progress, but then we're also getting paid along the way. That has worked well for us.
Definitely. And as I ask that question, I ask this question right after it because usually they sometimes go hand in hand, sometimes not. Sometimes it can be a problem on site or anything in your business. But my next question is a horror story. Joel, do you have a horror story from your time in business that you'd want to share with our audience? And the reason why I ask this is not to put you on the spot or anything like that, but to just help those wanting to get in business, wanting to get in the industry, to just share, like, you know what, things do happen. There are problems that do happen in business. But Joel, do you have a horror story you'd want to share with our audience?
Two that pop into mind, but the first one I'll share, I think again it goes back to the draw. That was really when we implemented it. It was the horror story that brought this on. We were doing a big retaining wall for a customer and big retaining wall and patio project, and we were doing it 50% down and 50% at the end. So we had like around $20,000 that this guy had, and long story short, he was just kept like adding things in, like, well, this, like wanted us to re-put in brick edging. After we put the brick edging in, like I had the customer meet us to really specify where he wanted it. We put it in, and then he literally came back from lunch and refused to give me the money until we moved it again. So it was just like kind of one of those things where you could feel the guy dragging you down the road a little bit. And that was, kind of the start of like, man, we've got to, that leaves a lot of power in your customer's hands. So looking back on it after you do the project, you're like, man, I knew better than to work with this person for X, Y, and Z. But yeah, sometimes that's easier to see after the fact. But yeah, that was for us, that was painful because it was somehow managed to be dragged on for weeks because he would say, well, I'm not home, and then it just became really a headache. Thankfully, we were paid for that. It was never got to that point. I know a lot of people have worse horror stories than that. But yeah, that was kind of that learning lesson for me of, man, I need to, collect more money along the way. Cause this is it was nerve wracking as a small business owner. You've got payroll coming up, the headaches of things, and this customer was just so reluctant to pay. and just kept kind of making silly changes. Um, yeah, that was really what started the process of the draw payments, which have been great for us. So we've never had like any nightmares where someone just straight up hasn't paid an amount. But yeah, that was a good enough lesson for me of like, man, I need to collect the money along the way for sure.
Definitely, yeah, a definitely good learning lesson, especially, and I've learned that. I'm sure many people have that draw method, having leaving as little to that end is the best for us as possible as business owners, and for that cash flow throughout the project, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even, just looking at being objective as far as our method, even 25% at the end, depending the project size can be a large amount. So I would definitely recommend, you don't want the customer having to come out every day and give you a check, obviously. But I think it's important that, yeah, as minimal amount you can leave to the end as makes sense, I think is super crucial,
Definitely.
uh, for sure.
Hey, do you have a budget set for 2023? Are you starting the estimating process with a budget in place to ensure that you are recovering your overhead expenses, labor, material costs, profit, and other hidden expenses within your business? Do you know that you're making profit on certain projects throughout the year? If you're struggling with any of these things, then the How to Hardscape headquarters can help you this year. Check it out at members.howtohardscape.com or shoot me a message at howtohardscape on Instagram. This software will streamline processes in your business. It's going to help you budget, estimate, ensure that you are making profit on projects throughout the year, and help you adjust throughout the year. We're also going to be continuously improving this software to include more and more features, as well as the content that's already available to members right now if you're looking to train your employees as they come in. So once again, members.howtohardscape.com. The price will continuously go up as more features and as more content is offered over there. So there's never a bad time to get signed up with that. And with that being said, let's get back to the episode. Joel, installation practices, equipment that you live by in your business. This is just like a broad range question that I just throw at you. Anything that you want to talk about in terms of installation practices that you live by in your business, equipment that you could not go without in your business or have recently purchased or are looking at purchasing, anything in terms of that you want to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely as far as installation, we build everything on open graded stone. I think most people are by now, but yeah, that for me was, probably about 5 years ago, we switched over to only open graded, but we have had very, very minimal callbacks and great results, with the open graded stone for that. So that, for us has been huge. And then as far as equipment, I know, looking back on kind of getting into the business myself, we got a skid steer with tires to start. That was to me like the machine. You needed a full size skid to be a landscaper, and I found we hardly could ever use it. It just destroys people's yards, and does a lot of damage. I mean, there is value in it. We do use it. But going back, I would say to any landscaper looking to start, the first machine I would buy is a mini skid, like a MT 100 or even the bigger Ditch Witch ones. Uh, to me, those are, that's like step one. That thing never comes home from the projects. It goes from site to site and is used every day. So for me, I know that's a pretty standard tool, but that would be to anyone looking to start or grow their business. I would say that'd be probably the first tool you look to buy. Um, but that has been great for us. We're finally gonna get a candy com this year, get our buggy, for 2023. But again, we don't currently have that right now. We, just operating with the full size skid and then the mini bobcat, stand on unit. So we got the dump trucks and stuff, but yeah, so there's a lot on the wish list for us. But I know the next tool for sure is going to be the buggy. That seems like, again, that other tool that would just never come home, be used constantly. So I think those are that's the combo that, any young landscaper should aspire to have, for sure.
Yeah, excellent. And then a couple more questions as we come to a close here, Joel. Anybody that you'd want to give a shout out here on this podcast, that's mentors, people that you look up to, inspiration, whatever that might be, that have helped you along the way. Anybody on this podcast that you want to give a shout out?
Absolutely. So for sure, Jack over at Imagine. I mean, for me personally, that's been a huge source of inspiration and motivation. We got connected with him probably about 5 years ago or so, maybe not quite that long. But yeah, just get yourself, around people like that. How whatever you got to suspend to do it, or however it works, but it's like getting yourself around uh, those good people. So Jack is number one for sure over at Imagine. Been a huge source of inspiration for me. Then also we got a lot of great guys locally, in our area, which is again Creekside with Mike, as well as Andy Mulder in the region. So we've got a lot of great installers. So those are all, again, some big shoes around here, to say the least, as far as some really great installers. So yeah, always got to shout those guys out.
And the final question, but it's a big one, Joel. What is one thing that you know now in your business or personal life, whatever you want to take this, that you wish you knew from the very beginning? So one thing that you know now that you wish you knew from the very start.
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, I think it's just like I struggled for a long time as far as pricing projects, right? I think I had some mental breaks as far as, numbers in my head or things like that. But I think as a business owner, just feeling that validation, I think is so crucial and so key to be able to charge what you're worth. So I think that if I could look back at myself 10 years ago, I think that's what I would tell myself is, charge what you're worth and know your value. Because I think there was a lot of wasted season of my life, just again, we were doing cool projects, but we just weren't charging enough. So I think that's a huge thing for business owners, value your time and charge for it.
Definitely. Yeah, you can't go wrong with charging what you're worth. Absolutely. And everybody has their own journey to that and understanding their numbers. So excellent advice, Joel. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Where can our audience go to learn more about you, what you've got going on over there?
Yeah, so Instagram, we're on Instagram at Hatton Landscape. So that's really where we got our website linked to and everything. So that's really our only push right now. We're not on YouTube or any of those other things at the moment. But yeah, check us out on Hatton Landscape on Instagram and give us a follow.
Awesome. Joel, thanks so much for your time.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Once again, Hatton_landscape there, Hatton_landscape to find out more about Joel and everything that he's got going on over there. Cycle CPA, also while you're there on Instagram, cycle_CPA. And if you need bookkeeping, accounting, or CFO services, they are cyclecpa.com. Reach out to them. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for $200 off their services there. And also check out the How to Hardscape headquarters. Go to members.howtohardscape.com to learn more about that, as well as everything else that we've got for members there. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.
Thinking back, you really years ago, I should have brought this up on the podcast, but bought your software as far as for the charging and estimating.
The spreadsheet there.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
And I mean, that was really step one for us of like, holy crap, I'm not charging anywhere near that was huge for us along the journey. So appreciate what you do. This is awesome.